Airport workers of Reddit, what was the weirdest thing someone tried to bring through security? Not an airport worker, but as a passenger traveling through Athens in 2009 I saw members of an extended family in traditional Arab dress attempt to bring several 12-inch ceremonial knives and a ceramic flask, like a carton moonshine jug, with gasoline/petrol in it. Watching the lady working for airport security trying to explain why they couldn't bring these items onto the plane using the very small number of English words that both parties understood was fascinating and painful in equal measure. I've told this story on Reddit before, but I used to work at private company housed at the airport years ago. The airport had its TSA, but it also had two on-duty police officers. One would walk through the actual terminal, the other sat in a squad car and pulled over people speeding in the departure area. Every day I worked there it was the same two officers. Let's call them Mike and Ted. Mike was an older officer. Story is he was a mean drunk and got put at the airport as punishment. I don't know for sure, but he was super gruff and was militant about catching speeders. He once gave me a ticket as I was leaving work one day. 15 means 15 kid. Ted was a different story. Green as goose shit. Total disregard for rules and regulations. The job was watching paint dry for 4 months besides the shenanigans Ted would get me into. Anyways, one day around 7 AM I get a buzz on the radio from my boss. Attention all, you're going to want to clear the building calmly and please don't alert the travelers. So, I make it out the parking lot and then the alarm goes to clear the public. Someone had left a piece of luggage and it tested positive for explosive materials. Mike left his patrol car to help clear the building and then both officers disappeared to the back. Maybe like 30 minutes later I see Mike hauling ass through the departure zone, Ted in tow swinging a massive black dildo, like legitimately 2 feet long. Mike is screaming, "Get that ducking thing away from me," and Ted is trying to get him to touch it. It's massive. Mike, look how big it is. As giddy as a schoolboy. Mike's old ass makes it to his patrol car and tries to roll up the window before Ted can get the dildo through the open window. Doesn't quite make it, so by the time he peels out has got half a black dildo hanging from his driver's side window. I have never laughed so hard in my entire life. Half of the suitcase contained ears of fresh corn and half frozen bratwurst. Family picnic in the south, apparently. In college many years ago I had a part-time job demonstrating a dollar counting machine. They were relatively new then. Once had to fly somewhere to give a demo and took my duffel bag full of $1 bills. The guy searching that bag called for his boss to come over. The boss was experienced enough to figure out that real drug dealers don't traffic in low value currency and he kept me from being arrested. I was traveling with a buddy from Canada to France. We were big into one card game that required pennies. So my friend, the character that he is, brought a glove full of around 1,000 pennies and without thinking, tossed it in his carry-on. Every security stop we went through, he had to dump out his glove of pennies and then put them all back into the glove. The first security check we went through, him and I were both staring at the screen, wondering what the hell was in his bag. The way it was placed, it looked like an awkward metal dinosaur. My child once packed a Ziploc full of sand in her suitcase. Turns out on X-ray this looks like a bomb. Also turns out her sand was full of rotten seaweed and tiny little, dead, sea creatures. Opening that bag was like the bog of eternal stench. 3 airports we hauled that damn bag through, and then I made her throw it away. It was me. I found a taxidermy chicken on a trip and had to buy it. Then I had to get her home. Well, she wouldn't fit in my suitcase, so I had to carry her in my arms. It was a really busy travel day, and that chicken amused everyone. Absolutely every person in line suddenly wasn't grumpy anymore. It's all laughed, especially when she had to go through the X-ray. Passengers who were irritated at line started smiling. I loved it. 10/10ths would travel with a chicken again. Bought a wiener dog corkscrew for my fiancé at a gift shop the same day as my flight. Threw it in my backpack and totally forgot to put it in my checked luggage. Noticed security grabbing my bag off the belt. They pulled out the corkscrew and I gasped and said, "My wiener dog." I must have looked genuinely concerned about that corkscrew because 2 TSA guys decided it didn't seem like much of a threat and let me keep it. Shout out to those TSA guys for letting me bring my derpy gift home. I worked SAP. Things that stood out to me was a hookah pipe. It looked like an octopus. Then some lady put her dog through the machine. It looked like a turkey. I once carried a small, stuffed toy llama in my carry-on. TSA Agent #1 turned to TSA Agent #2 and said, with delight, "Someone has a sheep in their bag." Not SAP, but I worked in a baggage room, where bags sat idle, until they were run to the plane or another transfer point. We typically didn't open bags, unless they were leaking, vibrating or void of any information, and we needed to reroute them, hoping for some form of ID inside the bag. It's vital you properly tag your baggage, as the airline's tags are only held together by an adhesive strip that will detach should it get drenched, and trust me, they can get drenched. Oh, and some are just plain paper and disintegrate in a hole. We had one guy come in from Paris with only a backpack. When it got to our bag room, a large red pool of something was eking out of the bag. Obviously our first thought is blood, so we put on some gloves and slowly opened the bag. There was canisters of extract and syrup in the bag. Blueberry, blackberry, raspberry, and strawberry. The strawberry had been badly damaged and was now leaking out of the bag and all over everything else. Dude also had a ton of whipped cream, like way more than anyone should ever have stuffed in this little backpack. He legit could have gotten these things from anywhere in the US, but opted to jam them in a backpack and ship them across the world, where one broke and definitely looked like a horror scene. We all knew better, but we were definitely waiting for there to be a head in there. There's also the time that for whatever reason a 5-gallon bucket of something squishy was left on the ramp. The gate called us to come get it. It was actually bleeding and smelled like BBQ. There was a picture of a pig on the side of the bucket and everything was in Spanish. We got a friend to translate it, and I forget what it was for, but the contents were sponge-like and filled with blood. Pretty gross. A live spider. Passenger didn't know and wasn't large, but he opened his bag. It crawled out, and I screamed. Human ashes. Homemade dildos. The woman gave me her business card. A live cat. Antlers with rotting flesh still on them. My favorite was a magician's bag. Alerted for explosives. He kept pulling bits out of pockets and showing me bits of his act. I was flying domestic as a late teen with my sister and without my parents. My bag of stuff was inspected after the X-ray, and a bug, earwig, crawled out from the backpack and then under the desk out of sight. The agent said nothing, and I said nothing. Can't wait to find the response from that TSA who flagged me, pulled my solid amethyst dildo out of my carry-on, and asked what it was. Edit. For anyone interested in purchasing one, Chakrabs is sold out, however, Etsy. My mate's dad works doing outbound baggage scanning, and he said he regularly gets people going to Pacific Island countries like Samoa with lawnmower engines or scooter engines in their carry-on baggage. Not SAP, but I got the most what the f look from TSA when they had a big black spot show up on the X-ray machine in my bag. Opened my bag and found a 15-pound piece of petrified wood I'd shoved in there. I worked dispatch for airport PD. We had a college kid come through on spring break with a joint sewn into his boxers. He'd have gotten through if he didn't wrap the joint in foil first. Not an airport worker, but I heard somewhere that in Dublin airports, somebody left a tombstone with the inscription "You will never be forgotten" on it. It is now in the airport's lost property section. Semicolon. Also, somebody recently tried taking a goldfish through in a 2-liter water bottle, so yeah, there's also that. Not an airport employee. I bought a large hand-hammered brass ladle at an antique store in PA. It was about 120 years old and 18 inches long, and it was freaking magnificent. I'm going through security and the TSA guy says I can't take it with me in my carry-on. I'm not running late, but going back through the process of checking a bag or finding packaging, where, and mailing it to myself, I might have missed the flight. So I asked to speak to the supervisor in charge. They came out and looked at the ladle, then at that TSA agent, and back at me, and said you can take that with you in your carry-on. Just don't take it out on the flight, like I'm going to be making soup at my seat with the cauldron I carry around with me. I gave it to my friend the sous chef as a gift and he christened it War Ladle. Others have called it the Ladle of Kings. And it truly is. A pizza bra like bra.